Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and this is my granny era. Today I want to talk to you guys about how to get in the maximum reading time when you have kids at home. Now I know that this video is not going to be for everyone. Not everybody has kids. Not everybody has kids at home. I myself am actually out of that stage for the most part, but I've had 25 years now of having kids at home while still trying to, get my reading in, self-educate, study, research, those sorts of things. And so I do have quite a bit of tools and just even some mindsets that I want to share with you guys that I think will really help you. Even if, the kids thing doesn't apply, I think that a lot of these things can apply if you are, someone who works outside the home full time, or someone who is caring for someone else, or, lots of different things that take you away from just that dream life of reading all day long. So I hope that everyone can benefit from this. And I just only want to speak to what I know, which is, almost 30 years of staying home, homeschooling, and raising my children. So I don't really want to be presumptuous, right, and talk about stuff that I might seem kind of out of touch, right? Oftentimes we watch bookish videos or like cozy living videos, and we dream about having the life that that person has, right? The stuff that they're doing seems so cozy and so relaxing, and their house is so clean and their stuff is so nice and they're having such a peaceful time, and we're just thinking, I could do that. I could have that if I just didn't have this, right? In this case, we're talking about if I just didn't have all of these home responsibilities, kids, food prep, housework, whatever. So one thing I want to say to that is I have been a social media influencer for about 16 years now. So I completely understand the concept of like cleaning one little portion of your house to make it great for the camera, and then the rest of the house is completely trashed, right? Or maybe going to a nice shop and getting food and desserts and putting it on your own plates to make it look like you've been baking and cooking, right? I'm not saying that our people don't do that, but that is something to keep in mind is, a lot of times when you're a social media influencer, you're really only showing the best of everything. Like if I pan this camera around this bedroom of mine, it's all sloppy, but behind me doesn't look too bad. Even though that calendar over there does still say December 2024. All right, so that's one thing I want you to keep in mind. But the second thing that you need to keep in mind is that while I can say that this can be done, this whole, spending a lot of time reading, spending a lot of time studying and research and your own self-education, it can be done. I'm a homeschooling mom of 9 and I've been doing it, so it is possible. But I do want to say, be careful what you wish for. Back in the day when I had 9 kids at home, 13 and under, 4 of them still in diapers, very limited income, everything was chaotic, I wished for more of my own time and more money to do stuff with. Now I have plenty of extra spending money and grown children. 3 have already moved out, 1 is apartment hunting, no one is climbing into bed with mommy anymore at 6 a.m. And yes, I definitely miss it. It does go fast, so don't wish it away. But I do still have those times when I just want to shout, go away, I'm trying to read. The kids that I still have at home now are literally 25 down to 12. So I can just say, go fend for yourself now and then, right? But it's not very nice. So before we can actually do the things that will give us more reading time, we need to think about the mindset about a few things. So the first one is we need to be honest with ourselves about how much time we really actually do have to devote to reading. Are we putting aside more important responsibilities in order to get that reading in? Now and then that's okay, but when it becomes a routine of putting aside things, then everything gets really chaotic and we start to feel resentful, we start to not enjoy our reading, we start to feel resentful about the things we put aside and not enjoy them. It really does require a balance, and it requires us to be honest about the season of life that we really are in. I see moms younger than me talking on here on BookTube all the time about how many books they have to read, the commitments they made, the book, events that they've joined and the things they signed up for. Maybe they decided to do a buddy read with someone or join a group that they feel obligated to commit to. And just a couple of days ago, I watched a video The girl seemed so stressed out about her reading. She seemed so overwhelmed. She just seemed like it was a huge chore, okay? It's not the way it's supposed to be, friends, right? Now, there are times in our lives when we might have to read, out of stress reading and obligation reading, if you're taking a class, whatever, but our entertainment reading should never get us to that point of being stressed out and obligated. Why do we do this? I think, for me anyway, social media, booktube, it gives us a social outlet. When I was home with so many children and I couldn't get out of the house if I wanted to, right? Or maybe we were, it was a season of our life where we were super broke and I didn't even have a car to go anywhere and I was just stuck at home all the time. The internet, those, old Yahoo chat rooms and MySpace and then Facebook and all this stuff. It was my way of connecting with other people, right? Because the whole world is open up to us on social media. So we can connect with people that want to talk about the stuff we want to talk about. They're reading the stuff we're reading. They are feeling the things we're feeling, all the things. And we really connect. And I think all kinds of people do that, not just stay-at-home moms. People of all, ages and stages of life, they often find a deeper connection with their online friends than they do with the people around them. I get that and I don't even have a problem with that. I just think we need to be careful to put it in its proper place. All right, the second thing we need to do is be honest about the distractions around us. Are these things more important than the reading we want to do? Okay, so I'm talking about things like Facebook or even like toxic friendships, TV, the shows that we like to watch. Things like that. Whatever these things are that aren't necessarily bad things, they're just the stuff we're doing instead of reading that we might not necessarily have to do. Are those distractions more important than the reading? If not, we need to evaluate, why do I choose these distractions over reading? And a lot of times it's because we are bored. We need a bigger intellectual challenge in our reading. I myself have had at least 2 big reading comprehension jumps since graduating high school. I noticed it right around age 33, which hopefully I actually had a jump somewhere in there between 17 and 33. I really just wasn't aware of it, but I remember at 33, I distinctly just felt I could read things and understand things that I didn't before. And then just sometime in this last 18 months or so, really since I started BookTube, I have noticed myself being able to read and understand things that I didn't before. And so we have the ability to always grow intellectually if we feed that challenge, give ourselves that challenge. And so if you're finding that you're DNFing a lot of stuff and you're just not interested, it may be that you need to change genres, or it may be that you need to read something that's a little bit meatier. I don't even want to speculate on what that is because we're all at different, areas and levels and whatever, but consider that. You might just be bored. I've noticed that with my reviews too. I've been keeping reviews on books since about 2008. And recently I did go back and read some of those. And I was like, wow, my writing was pretty shallow. My thoughts were pretty shallow on the story. So, and even some of those I've reread and realized, I didn't even get it at the time. And so just allowing yourself to grow and continuously challenging yourself. Everything you read doesn't have to be challenging, but some things probably should be. And for me, I have found that the more that I kind of just stay off of mindless social media and I be very careful to not get myself involved in toxic friendships and toxic, friend groups and that kind of thing, I find that I have a lot more brain space and heart space and time to do these challenging sort of reads and research, rabbit holes and studies and things like that I really do want to do. That is what I want to do with my life. I want to read and research and write about the things that interest me and the things that I'm learning. And so it really just takes us evaluating what is getting in the way. Some of the things we can't change, but a lot of the things we can. Number 3 is that we should develop goals about what we want to read and why we want to read that. Having a number goal, like I want to read 100 books this year, whatever, that's really great for some people, and it's actually really debilitating for other people. So figure out, are you a person that's like that, or are you just kind of doing it because that's what everybody does? All of us, though, can make the best use of our reading time if we are reading with purpose. Reading for a purpose. this is going to take some evaluating, right? You might have to actually make a list of, the stuff you like and the stuff that you don't like. Do some self-evaluation on what your preferences are and make it no obligation evaluation. Some people have never stepped away from that school mentality that says there is a list of books that you must read if you're going to be considered to be well-read, right? They focus heavily on the canon, the Western canon or the English canon, or, these sorts of things where it sounds really lofty and wonderful. And if I would just read all those things, I will be considered well-read. But I don't think that that is always the case. And I think we can get ourselves into this, little corner, back ourselves into a corner of obligated reading. You should read the things that you love, the things you're interested in, the things that you wonder about and that you're curious about, or that cause you to imagine, or that spark your, creative ways. That maybe you're an artist, maybe you're a writer, and what you're reading sparks you to create in those other ways. Like, those are the things that we should be feeding our imaginations and our brains with, in my opinion, anyway. Just know you are a grown-up now, right? So you can read whatever suits your fancy. You can also read at whatever pace suits your fancy. What we need to understand about being well-read, it's not necessarily what you're reading, it's more about what you're getting from it, what you're understanding from it, what you're taking from it, what you're learning from it, and how you're assimilating what you read. Because we can read, we can understand words on a page and how to pronounce them all day long, but are we assimilating that? Are we allowing it to make us grow? To me, that's the definition of really being well-read. But on the other hand, there are seasons in our life when we just need to go from like a fluffy read to a beach read to a fluffy read to a beach read. And that's okay too. I just, don't stay in that spot unless that's just really what feeds you and what you love to do. Then, whatever. Number 4, I think we need to be very careful about taking on the reading goals of other people, okay? So there's a lot of us booktubers who set up reading events, read-alongs, and yeah, we want everybody to come along, but we're the ones who chose, we're the ones who curated that collection of, children's classics for the year that we're all going to read. We're the one that's bringing the invitation, but sometimes I think people get so bogged down with those that they don't read the things that they love to read. Like I said in the beginning of the video, they so much want this social circle, but if you've watched enough of my videos, you can see I'm a super eclectic reader. I talk about all kinds of books. I don't fit into any certain niche here on BookTube. I don't have like a My BookTube clique because I am a very wide-ranging reader. I read all kinds of stuff. And it's totally okay with me, right? I join the stuff I want to join. I, don't join the stuff I don't want to join, and nobody's feelings are hurt. Sometimes we can make that a bigger deal than it is. If we put too strict of parameters on what we're reading, it just really takes away from the freedom. So we gotta be careful about that. Okay, so now that we got like the mindset stuff out of the way, let's talk about like some rules and things that we can implement to give us more of that free time that we're looking for. I like to call this section how to make people do what you want them to, which is leave you alone so you can read, right? So I grew up in a culture of reading. My mom had bookcases in the living room packed full of books. She always had a paperback book sitting next to her nail file on the coffee table. I can picture it in my head now. We are not allowed to touch that. I remember going into this little paperback exchange shop with her on payday, and she'd go in, take a stack of books in and come out with a stack of books. And I didn't really understand exactly what was going on there. It kind of felt like a drug deal. But we knew that if mom was reading, we were not allowed to interrupt. My kids can come and like stand next to me and wait for me to look up, but I don't even remember my mom allowing my brother and I to do that. Like, we just stayed away if mom was reading. Do not interrupt. She will deny this, but I remember even being locked out of the house as a kid to go play outside and leave her alone. She was probably in there reading, or maybe she was watching General Hospital. But car rides, fishing days, camping trips, mom had a stack of books and us kids had a stack of books. Before nap time when we were little kids, we would sit on the couch with her and read stories. She took us to the library summer reading events, and one summer she even made up her own event in the park with my brother and I and a couple of our cousins, and she and my dad had even made kind of like this map and little dinosaur paper cutouts, and the dinosaurs kind of traveled along. We each had our own. They traveled along the map, and I was so creative. I will never forget that. My mom wanted to read, and so she made a way to make it work. And we can do this too. The first recommendation I have may seem counterintuitive, but it is to include them, all right? Pages read are pages read. I set aside time to read with each of my 4 youngest kids on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. All that time counts, and all those books count. My kids are in the stages where they are reading, middle grade up to, adult level books, and so we read those things together. I'm reading classics with my olders and middle grade with my youngers, but so I count all of that stuff. But if you are still in like the picture book stage or the little golden book stage, maybe count like 10 or 20 as one book read. You're fostering a love of reading with them, but you're also getting your own reading and education in as well. All right, the second thing you can do is to train them. Now, we train our kids in all kinds of things, right? That's part of our jobs as parents, is to train them to, do certain things and act certain ways. And one of the things that we can train them to is to respect. Having respect for the time and the space of other people. It's important in your own home, but it's important in the whole world, right? Teach them to knock on your bedroom door if it is shut, not just open the door and walk in. Teach them not to interrupt when you are reading or writing or typing. Have them stand there quietly until you look up. You know they're there. And teaching them self-control to just be quiet for a sec, right? Let you finish your thought or finish your sentence in your book or whatever. It teaches them patience and self-control and respect for you and for other people. Teach them that your personal things are your own things, right? Just certain things, not everything, but there are certain things that are just yours and you don't want them to touch without asking. And then do the same thing for them, right? When I go into my kids' rooms, I don't usually just go up to their shelves and grab stuff, unless it's sturdy dishes. But I will ask, hey, do you mind if I borrow your copy of whatever, right? They might have a book I want. Maybe they have, an item, an accessory or something. Like, I will ask first. Not so much because, I'm of the mindset that everything in this house belongs to me, even if they think it belongs to them. So it's not so much about like, this is their thing, I better ask first. It's more about teaching them this is what you do to be polite. And it's all about teaching them that personal space thing and respecting people's time and space. Another thing that I've always done with my kids is nap time. Once they got to maybe 9 years old or so, they didn't have nap time anymore, but they also, by that point, were able to realize, hey, mom needs hers, so we're going to be quiet. I take a nap every single day, every day I take a nap. And so some of my kids now do as well. They're tired in the afternoon, they'll go lay down and take a nap. But when they were younger, nap time was also reading time. So you can lay there and read the whole time. You don't have to sleep. You just got to be quiet, right? Also, we did that with bedtimes. Even with our younger kids, we were having a really hard time making them just lay down and be quiet and go to bed, because we need our sleep too, right? Stay in your bed, quit getting up. And so we allowed them to start taking a stack of books to bed. You can have the stack of books and you can stay up reading all night long if you want to. You just have to stay in your bed, right? So that idea of being able to stay up all night long was really enticing. And of course they'd fall asleep, reading like we all do, but it works. It may work with your kids. It may totally not. It's fine. Don't come at me with the comments. I'm just trying. I'm just trying to help you. But as kids get older, we can show them that time for personal growth and creative, outlets, those are really important for everyone, and everyone deserves them. And as our kids get older, we can teach them that time for personal growth and downtime is a right that everyone should have. When my kids were younger, I would point out that everyone has creative things that they like to do. Legos, coloring, Barbies, imaginative play, and mommy likes to read and write. And I would say, I will give you time to do your creative thing, and I, during that time, will be doing my creative thing. So you spend your time playing your Legos, playing your Barbies, coloring your picture, whatever it is that you're doing. This is your time to have your downtime, have your creative time, whatever it is you want to do. Here are your, resources, your toys. And I'm now going to come over here and take my time. I'm not going to bug you during your time. You don't bug me during my time. Teaching them this mutual thing, this, equality thing, really, when it comes to stuff like that, this mutual respect. It goes a long way, kind of in a, child psychology sort of way. And I make it part of my everyday. When my kids aren't doing their schoolwork or their chores, they are free to do, whatever they want that's not on screens. I do limit their screen time a lot, but they do have certain times during the week they could be on screens. But anything else, whatever it is, just, do it. I value their time to be able to pursue their own interests, and in turn, I want them to value mine. If they're not valuing mine, if they're harassing me over things that don't matter, or if they're, flopping around, I'm bored, they want me to entertain them, then they get their time taken away because I've had to give up mine as well, right? Again, the mutual equality thing here, and it goes both ways. All right, the third thing is to distract them. Now, when I had younger kids, I was not above turning on the TV now and then so I could get in some reading or writing time. I'm not sure I've actually locked them out of the house before, but I'm probably not above that either. But doing things like going to the park and, sitting on a blanket and reading while they play, you might not get a ton of reading in, but you get something in. And again, you're showing them that you value your own rest time, and it teaches them to value it as well. Maybe you can invest in some cheap stuff that they can kind of get into for a while, like Play-Doh or watercolors, or just let them play in the mud, or, get a kiddie swimming pool with a bunch of buckets or something, just something that they can kind of keep themselves occupied for a little bit. Things that are sort of cheap, and then you can just kind of sit in a chair, right, and read while they are occupied with this stuff. I remember when my brother and I were little kids, we would make perfume in our wagon. So my mom would be sitting in the chair. I can remember this particular day, she was sitting in the chair, she had a girlfriend over, and they were sitting there chatting and sunbathing. And we were pulling all of the leaves off of our weeping willow tree and putting them into our wagon, and then filling it with a hose and, sort of swishing it around. And it made a actually really lovely smelling liquid, and we said that we were, making perfume. And so my mom would play into it. Oh yes, why don't you try making blah 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 version, and I would like something that's called, blah blah blah, and she'd make up something fancy, and it would occupy us for 20 minutes or so while she continued to chat. And but same thing, we can do that and read and just kind of play their little game and let them do their thing. And this is just, this is basic, right? But sometimes we don't think about this stuff. Sometimes we feed their, I'm bored flopping around thing, and it's just, that's not okay. Some of this stuff is messy, but sometimes we have to just pick our battles, right? Sometimes it's worth it for a good 20-30 minute stretch of reading or writing what it is that we're interested in doing, and the kids can help clean up the mess, so it's all fine. The fourth thing is to make resources available. So I have a ton of books in my house, literally thousands of books here in the house, but I haven't always had that many. It didn't start out that way, right? This library has been built over, the 45 years of my life. When we started having kids, we started out with a tall bookshelf that had 5 shelves on it. 4 of the shelves were my books, and 1 shelf was for the kids' books. Now the kids have a full 5-shelf bookshelf for just children's books that are not chapter books, and then they have a couple more shelves that are chapter books, and then we have 4 books that are kind of the family resource, reference, history, whatever, school books, and that kind of thing. So the kids technically have like 6 bookshelves that are all their very own, and then I have my library, which has, I don't know, like 6 or 7 bookshelves in it, which they do have to ask before they can get into that. But the kids are allowed to read from anything that's not in my library without asking, as long as they, bring them back. But when they were little, they could read anything on their children's bookshelf, just not take them into their rooms. When my daughter was about 5, we're like, okay, she's old enough, we'll move her bookshelf into her room. But then we shortly after that found her coloring in all of her books, and so we moved it out and waited. My kids were about 8 years old before we started putting bookshelves in their rooms, and now each of them have their own book collection in their rooms, which is their own private collection that not even I get into without permission, because I'm trying to teach them that books are special, and that the investment that we make in books is important, and that we treat them well, and that we value them enough to know where they are and who's got them, and be kind of choosy about who we lend them to and that kind of thing, to make sure that we're going to get them back, right, and that they're going to be treated well. All of these things play into that respecting, the time, my time, and eventually, as they go out into the world, respecting the time of other people, but also respecting their own time and making the most of it and treating that resting downtime as important. But if you're trying to build a library, you can utilize library book sales, thrift shops, obviously all the obvious things, yard sales, whatever. There is a site, if you're not aware, it's called paperbackswap.com here in the US, where you can trade books online. You can ask for books as gifts. My son and his wife have a tradition of taking their kids to Barnes & Noble on their birthdays and letting them choose a book. So they're adding to their libraries in that way and just kind of having that bookish bookstore experience as part of their special birthday celebration. When my kids want a book, I try to get it ASAP because I don't want that mood to pass. They're wanting, access to this book. They don't have their own money. So I try to go on and, get it from eBay or Amazon or whatever, kind of quickly if I don't think that my, local bookshop will have it. Not everyone censors their kids' books. I do censor my kids' books up to a certain age. And I really think that that's the only censorship that should ever be allowed anywhere ever is parental censorship. But that's a whole other topic, right? But it doesn't take very long, and it's easier than having to undo damage later when they are, exposed to ideas that I wasn't ready for them to be exposed to yet. And the thing is, in all of this, some kids aren't readers, right? Some kids don't like to read at all, and they like to do other things. And so if we pay attention to what it is that our kid, what his aptitudes are, what his interests are, and then try to make those resources available, all of these same concepts apply. They can practice respecting our time. We are respecting their time. I have one son who didn't like to read as a kid, hardly at all, but he loved to build things. And so trying to have those resources available for him, right? I was able to implement all of these same things. Because the truth is kids usually annoy us when they're bored. So if we figure out what it is they love to do and accommodate that in a way that is reasonable for our circumstances, right? Then we will have that time available to use to our advantage. What we choose to do with that time does depend on our mindset, though, like we talked about in the beginning. I want to leave you with this thought that my husband told me 15 or 16 years ago. I was really frustrated one day, and he was at work and I was texting him, and I was just like, I'm never going to have time to do the stuff I want to do. There's so many things. And I had a lot of kids. I had a lot of little kids. At this time, I would have had, maybe 7 kids, all 12 and under. So that was a lot. But I remember texting him just frustrated one day, and there's so many things, right? I was just barely 30 years old, and I wanted to write, and I wanted to publish, and I wanted to research, and I wanted to travel, and I just wanted to do, artsy things and creative things in my home. And I had so many dreams and goals, and I just found myself cooking and cleaning and changing diapers and feeding bottles and turning on, whatever they were watching on TV all the time, and homeschooling and running them to co-op and all things that I did love to do, but I felt like I was losing me, right? And about that age, I think that a lot of women go through that in the early 30s where they just feel like, I'm losing myself. Is there anything more? And what my husband said was the absolute best thing he could have ever said to me. And I still hold on to it even now at 45, probably take it a little more to heart than I should now because I have gotten a little bit lazy. But what he said to me was, why don't you just evaluate your situation? What is it you have to do? He's like, my mom would always say dishes, laundry, and garbage. Those are the really important things to do so that your house doesn't smell, right? And you have the basics that you need. Do your dishes, do your laundry, do your garbage. And so my husband was like, pick out the things that are super essential and do your best to keep up on those, right? You don't have to do them perfectly. Just try to keep up. After that, pick 1 or 2 extra things you think that you might want to do that day, like, vacuum everything or wash the windows in the living room or whatever, right? Pick another couple of things that you think you might want to do. And then after that, do the stuff you want to do. Don't spend your whole day doing all the obligations. Because what he said to me, and this is the thing I really held on to, he's like, you will never get all the obligations done. You just never will. They'll always be there. There will always be something to dust, something to clean, something to cook, something that you could be doing better, whatever it is. In your job, in your, volunteer position, whatever it is that you do, There's always something that needs to be done. He's like, you're never gonna get all that stuff done. So just do the basics, the stuff that's gonna keep us from, being gross and keep us alive. Pick a couple of other things to just kind of, keep up with the extras. And then after that, do your fun stuff, do what you want. It really changed my life. It did. And not every family runs this way. I understand that. But at that time in our family, he was working full time to provide financially, but he was also going to college full time in the evenings to try to get his degree, right? So he could get a better job. He was working really hard. And so there wasn't a lot of extra time for him to help around the house. And so our agreement was that, he would do those things and then I would take care of the home and the children, and make sure that the house was, clean and food was made and all the homemaking stuff that you do. And so that was our agreement at the time. And I just was so frustrated at trying to live up to my side of the agreement. And the fact that he saw, hey, your side of the agreement actually never ends. So this is what you should do, right? Go easy on yourself. So I am telling you now, if nobody else in your life will tell you this, go easy on yourself. Do the basics so, you don't die and things aren't gross. Do one or two extras to make sure that you are keeping up on these other things. And then do what you want. Just do the relaxing, creative, fun, whatever it is that you want to do. Work that in, make that part of your routine, make that a priority. Because one, guys, life is too short, and two, our life is what we make it. And there's not a lot of people in anyone's life who care about that more than you do, right? So it's kind of a self-care thing. It's kind of a watching out for yourself and making sure that your life matters to other people, and what you're giving to other people, it does matter, but also make sure that your life matters to you, and make sure that you are enjoying your life the best you can. All right, guys, I hope that this inspired you. I hope that it doesn't seem too sort of out of touch, right? I understand it can't speak to every situation, but I know it can speak to a lot of situations, and I do hope that it has helped some of you and encouraged some of you. Hope you guys are having a really great day. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.